Hi everyone, it's Jen with Stamp Silly. Today we're going to work on repeated stamped images. We're going to start with a card that is just a card front, and it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And we're going to work with the Project Life by Stampin' Up! Set, December Wonder. I just love the snowflakes in this set. They're kind of whimsical. I don't know, I'm in love with these snowflakes. So I'm going to take those 2 snowflakes and lay them down on my grid here and just line up the center with one of the lines on my grid. And then I'm going to put in the other stamp right next to it. I'm going to butt them up right together and line it up also with that line. There's a line that goes through those stamps that makes those perpendicular. Anyway, and then I just use my black to pick those stamps up. And then I know that they are aligned perfectly. Now I'm going to just draw a very faint pencil line on my card front using a ruler, and again I'm going to use those grid lines to make sure that I've got it straight. So just with a pencil, just a real faint pencil line across there. Okay, now that gives me a line where I'm going to stamp my images. I'm going to be using 2 different colors to ink up my stamps. I'm going to use Pistachio Pudding and Bermuda Bay. So I'm going to show you how we're going to ink both those stamps up in 2 different colors, just to make the stamping much quicker than you would do if you were stamping one image at a time. So you see here I'm just inking up the larger stamp in the Bermuda Bay and avoiding the smaller snowflake, and now I'm inking up the smaller snowflake in the Pistachio Pudding. And if I'm careful, I can be sure that I didn't get the one color onto the other. Now I'm using that pencil line. You can't see it here in the video, but I'm using the pencil line to line up those stamps. And now I'm just going to go back and ink up the larger snowflake in Bermuda Bay and the smaller snowflake in the Pistachio Pudding. Okay, and going to stamp that down again using that pencil mark as my guide. And you'll see by being able to stamp 2 colors at one time, it really speeds this process up without having to move back and forth between blocks and colors. Lastly, I'm just going to put on the Bermuda Bay. I didn't need to even bother inking up the stamp with the Pistachio Pudding. If I get a little ink on my mat, I just clean it off with my cleaning cloth. And now I am going to go to the second row, and I can easily line these up. I've inked them up in the same way, and I can line them up vertically this way. It's not a problem at all, since you can see through the stamp and the block, it works perfectly. Okay, so there I just had a little bit of ink on my stamp, and I just wipe it off with my finger. And I'm just going to repeat this process across the card. Alright, see, easy as pie. Now I just need to fill in with a Pistachio Pudding color snowflake there. So I stamp that down, and perfect. But I do want to fill in the bottom because it's just a little bit, it doesn't look finished to me. And so I'm just going to ink my stamps there with the 2 colors, and we're going to stamp this. And if I don't press down very firmly, if I just press with the top of the stamp, then I can flip my stamp over because I didn't take that ink off. And I'm going to stamp the other side, matching those snowflakes up so they're alternating colors. And now all I need to do is very lightly put in just a little bit of that Bermuda Bay snowflake. So again, I'm not even inking up the entire stamp. I'm just going to get the tips and squeeze that in there. And that's perfect. Easy and quick. Okay, so now I've still got that pencil line there, so I just need to erase that real quickly. And just use a light hand and a really good eraser, and it takes it right off. You'll never know that I needed a pencil line to line those images up. But there we have that. Now we're going to turn this into a birthday card. Snowflakes are great for winter birthdays. So I've got a piece of pistachio pudding cardstock here that I went ahead and cut with the Party Pennants die. And I'm going to use the sentiment from Big News. And we'll just use that big, it's your birthday. It fits perfect on that piece of cardstock. And so we're going to stamp that, and we're going to add a little bit of bling to this. So I line up my stamp so that I can get it on my cardstock straight, since I've already die cut that. And this is going to be inked up using Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink, perfect for using with embossing powders. So I've inked that up, and now I'm going to stamp it towards the bottom of my die cut piece. Okay, we won't end up needing this entire piece of pennant, so we'll end up trimming it off. And now I'm just going to sprinkle it with some silver embossing powder. This is where our bling is going to come in from. So I sprinkle all over, and I like to just use a piece of scrap paper underneath me and get rid of any excess embossing powder. And then if I've got little stragglers, what I do is I just take a little tiny brush and brush off any little bits that might be left over. And just do this really carefully so you don't make a mistake. However, if you do, that Versamark is sticky long enough that you can sprinkle on a little bit more embossing powder and get all those little areas covered really well. You'll notice that I thump on the cardstock a little bit, and that just kind of gets rid of any strays. I had forgotten to use my embossing buddy over the top of this when I initially stamped it, so the embossing buddy would have eliminated the need to do all this brushing. But now that I have it, the embossing powder on there, I'm just going to heat it up with my heat gun. Okay, so I'm going to speed the video up a little bit here so that you don't have to see me heat embossing this in real time. You just want to heat that up until the embossing powder starts to melt, and you'll notice that it will get shiny as it melts. When it's done, it's all good and shiny. Okay, so this is going to layer perfectly on top of this card front. However, I'm thinking that it's an awful lot of muted colors, so I want to trim down my card front to 4 by 5 1/4 so that the card actually shows through from the back. I'm going to use a Bermuda Bay card, and that will add a pop of color. So I'm just going to trim off my side. Oh, oops, I see I forgot to turn my catch in the trimmer. You need to make sure that it's not on the part that is meant for scoring. So it kind of left a rough edge there. And I decide that I don't like that rough edge. I could just sand it off with a sanding block, but I'm just going to trim it just a tiny bit shorter so that it will have a nice clean edge. I'm using the rotary blade in my Stampin' Trimmer, and that's why I needed to turn the cutting edge, I guess is what it's called. I don't know those technical terms. Anyway, okay, so now we are getting farther here. I am going to put this on my cardstock. Again, this is my card. It is Bermuda Bay, and it's just your standard A2 card size. I'm going to burnish the edge with my bone folder, and I can go ahead and put down my card front then onto the top of it. And I like to use our new Fast Fuse tape runner for this, just because it is super sticky and it works wonderful. I love it. I can be assured that my cards won't fall apart as they go through the mail with the Fast Fuse. So I lay that down, and then I decide where I want to trim my my banner off at. So I'm just going to grab a pencil and make a couple of marks where I want that trimmed off. see, that was kind of nice. I can make this any length I want. I could have made it longer if I wanted it longer, but I just easily decide where I want it. So I'm just going to line my pencil marks up in the cutting area and trim that off, and then I just need to erase the pencil marks if I didn't catch them, if they didn't get trimmed off. So I'm doing that, and now I can put that on my card front, but I think it needs a little more color. It still seems a little bit bland. So here I have a strip of Bermuda Bay cardstock, just a scrap piece, and I'm going to take a piece of washi tape. We're going to add a little more bling to bring that silver from the sentiment into the card itself. So I'm just going to take my long strip of washi tape, and I'm going to block off some of that cardstock. And then I'm just going to ink up that edge with the Versamark ink. Again, this is that really sticky ink, and it's great for getting that embossing powder to stick to it. Okay, so I'm just inking up the edge, and I'm not even worried about my craft mat. You know what? That'll clean up easily with my cleaning cloth. So I'm just going to peel that up and clean up my Versamark mess so I don't get any embossing powder on my craft mat. Not that it would be a big deal, but so now I'm going to grab my embossing powder. I'm just going to sprinkle this right over the edge. That washi tape helps give me a nice crisp line, so I can have a straight line of just embossed image. So I'm just going to peel that off, that washi tape off, and if I peel it back on itself, it comes up real easily. Okay, so now I just need to emboss that real quickly. Okay, so I'm going to speed up the video here a little bit again. And again, I'm just heat embossing that silver powder until it gets nice and shiny. And then we can add it to our card. And I do like the way that this looks on the card. It does add a punch of color and just a graphic strip there with that little bit of bling at the bottom of the Bermuda Bay piece. I really think I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my card, but I'm thinking that maybe the top of the pennant needs just a little bit of something, but I'm not quite sure what. It'll come to me as I'm creating this card. So I go ahead and use the fast fuse again for the Bermuda Bay strip and attach it to the card front there. Just lining it up to get it as straight as possible and sticking it down real firmly. Okay, now I'm going to look at that sentiment piece again and see what I think there. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to add this Bermuda Bay strip over there, and as I lay that down, I just think it's going to be too much. So I'm just going to use my washi tape again and add the strip of color there. Alright, well unfortunately my video cuts me off right here, but I did the same technique as before and just created a silver strip across the top of that pennant using the silver embossing powder. And then I added a little punched star from Bermuda Bay cardstock. It was a perfect little accent for the bottom of that pennant. Also in the end, I decided that a few silver sequins were just the right touch to finish this card off. Well, I hope you like this video and my card, and I'm hoping that you will continue to watch. I will link supplies for this card down below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.